Hurra! 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 16 gånger! Hurra! För när ni hör detta är Pau Gasols tröja pensionerad och hissad i Crypto Arena där Lakers hyllar sin katalanska superstjärna och dennes karriär. Tröjan hissas upp när Lakers spelar mot Memphis Grizzlies. Ingen slump att det är just mot Grizzlies eftersom det var i Grizzlies karriären började för Pau Gasol och där han spelade 6 säsonger innan han blev tradad till Lakers. I Lakers blev han mästare 2 gånger och ytterligare en gång spelade han final innan han bland annat flyttade till Chicago Bulls. Men redan dagar innan han får ta emot publikens hyllningar i Los Angeles har man i Spanien och i hans hemstad redan hängt upp en gigantisk Gasol-tröja på en husvägg i hans hemkommun Saint Boy utanför Barcelona. Det har varit lite surr om att spelare som till exempel Derek Fisher som vunnit 5 NBA-titlar och Kurt Rambis som vunnit 4 borde fått sina tröjor pensionerade först innan Gasol. Men nu blev det alltså Pau Gasol som en av väldigt få europeer som fått sina tröjor hissade i ett NBA-lags arenor. De som fått det förutom Gasol är Dražen Petrović i Nets, Vlade Divac och Peja Stojakovic i Sacramento Kings, Zydrunas Ilgauskas i Cleveland, Tony Parker i San Antonio och Dirk Nowitzki i Dallas. Pengar, pengar och mera pengar. Det regnar flis över de europeiska Euroleague-lagen. TV-avtalen som ger olika pengar in skiljer sig rätt rejält åt beroende på vilken marknad man är i och vad det handlar om. Den enskilt största TV-marknaden är den israeliska där Maccabis Euroleague-medverkan drar in 6,2 miljoner euro till ligan. Grekland står också för en gigantisk kaka och det gör även spanska TV-avtalet. Men sen har vi vissa andra länder som det går lite mindre bra för. Till exempel litauiska Žalgiris Kaunas vars avtal bara drar in drygt 1 miljon euro. Ja, men det är ändå 1 miljon. Nåväl. Oavsett intäkter så är det dags för ännu en episod av Fattigmanspodden 305 med Kribba Sjögren, Johan Lind och Viktor Petrovski. Här är episod 82. Pengar, pengar, pengar. Ja, det är mycket pengar på spel här nu, Euroleague-lagen. Kribba, kommentar till den här, alltså de här siffrorna.
Jo, men det är ju intressant. Det är ganska stora pengar tycker jag ändå. Det är intressant att, jag ska erkänna att jag historiskt inte har sett någon statistik tidigare på vad det finns för tv-pengar i respektive land då. Men som i Maccabi som får 6 miljoner euro, det är ju ganska mycket pengar. Vi pratar ju 60 miljoner och det är ju kul.
Det räcker till en bänkspelare typ i Maccabi, eller?
Ja, det räcker till en bänkspelare i NBA. Men i Maccabi räcker det nog mer. Men det är ju ska Euroleague bli framgångsrik så behövs det ju stora tv-avtal och det behövs ju sändas över hela Europa och egentligen över hela världen som kanske världens näst bästa liga då. Så att det går ju till rätt håll i alla fall, även om tv-pengarna inte direkt är samma som NBA. Så är det ju ändå på väg att i flera länder blir helt okej tv-avtal. Grekland 5,3 miljoner euro och så vidare och så vidare. Så att, jag tycker det är positivt som 17 för Euroleague.
Vad säger du, Johan?
Självklart är det positivt, håller med på allt Kribba säger. Det som var intressant är väl också att jag vet inte hur pengarna riktigt fördelas. För det är väl också lite med de här som har licenser från början. Det har väl lite med hur stor, om du är delägare i Euroleague eller inte att göra. Och de här som har de här licenserna som finns eller som fanns när Euroleague skapades, när man gjorde de här licenserna som faktiskt har sålts ett par gånger, ska man också klart för sig till några klubbar. Men de har väl en viss procent av tv-avtalen om jag har förstått det här rätt. Och det gör ju också att vi som kommer från den svenska miljön där man liksom alla får samma delar och såna här grejer. För så är det ju inte i Euroleague. Det är ju liksom, okej, äger du ett visst antal procent av aktierna så får du ett visst antal del av tv-pengarna. Och det har ju väldigt mycket med historik att göra, vilket ju jag vet inte. Jag tycker att de rika blir rikare, så enkelt är det ju. Det är svårare för de mindre klubbarna att slå sig in.
Du får luska lite mer i det, men det är ju som du säger, det är ju aktieägarna som får dela på tv-pengarna. Det är inte lokala tv-avtal som jag kanske eventuellt sa här. Så att, nationella avtal. Jag vet att i Grekland skulle de ju få 1 miljon euro tror jag utav statliga ERT, Olympiakos och Panathinaikos. Så det verkar finnas flera kakor att dela på. Men det här är rätt komplext. Vi får titta lite mer på det och läsa på lite mer till nästa gång. Men det är kul. Kul att det kommer.
Men det är precis samma problem och samma utmaningar som fotbollen har. Att det blir större och större avstånd mellan vissa föreningar och vissa klubbar och vissa länder framförallt. Att det blir ännu svårare. För varje år som går så blir det svårare och svårare för länder som Sverige och Belgien och Holland och andra länder att liksom komma i fatt eller på något sätt vara i närheten av att få vara med och leka med de stora pojkarna eller flickorna.
Jag tycker ändå att fotbollen har väl en lite bättre, för det är ju inte liksom Champions League-pengarna, ja du får mer om du går längre. Men det är ju inte så att
än så länge. Ja. De tittar ju naturligtvis fortfarande på...
Ja, men det vet vi, har vi pratat om så många gånger. Alltså, de stora klubbarnas våta dröm är ju Euroleague för fotboll.
Och det kommer ju vara... Där någonstans finns den här supporterkulturen som faktiskt hindrar dem. Har lyckats hindra dem hittills i alla fall i fotbollen. Och den kanske inte är lika stark då i Europa när det gäller basketen. Det finns en annan typ av... De är inte lika hardcore supportrarna, förutom kanske i Turkiet och Grekland och Serbien då.
Fast det var väl också så att Euroleague kom in i en period där det liksom fanns ett vakuum där det behövdes kapital och det behövdes... Alltså, ja, nej, jag tror att timingen för att göra Euroleague var bättre än att göra Super League i fotboll.
Säkert.
Kompletterar med att säga också att publikrekord i Australien, det är kul att det är också ett land och en liga som går väldigt bra. Bästa publiksiffrorna på 25 år står det här. Så det tycker jag också är roligt. Och det är en liga som är faktiskt väldigt bra. Jag skulle sätta den bland bästa europeiska i nivå, om vi ska jämföra också.
Och med jättemycket, det känns som det, eller också spelarmässigt så finns det massa intressanta nya spelare som tar sig till NBA. Josh Giddey har vi pratat om förut och så vidare, men det finns flera australiensare som liksom börjar synas i NBA och det är ju spännande för det landet när det gäller OS och annat som kommer framöver. Jaha, NBA ja. Det börjar dra ihop sig där, hörni. Det är ju ganska intressant. Jag har nog haft någon konstig förmåga att gå upp tidigt på morgnarna nu för tiden. Det var ju, vi nämnde det här tidigare i löpet. Pau Gasol, flaggan, Johan, såg du hinningen?
Jag fastnade ju kvar i den här jäkla andra matchen med New York och Boston, så jag såg ju inte.
Du såg inte hyllandet?
Nej, jag gjorde ju inte det. Jag skäms ju lite för det.
Det är för dåligt.
Men jag säger, för du som brukar gå upp tidigt, Scott Foster.
Du får ja, men alltså förklara. Jag såg den matchen. Berätta nu. Är det så? Är du ironisk när du säger att han är favoritdomare eller?
Det är väl ingens favoritdomare. Han är väl allas hatdomare och han visar väl i natt varför.
Scottie Barnes i Toronto tycker inte om honom och inte Nick Nurse heller just nu efter att de förlorade i matchen på något som ingen riktigt förstår vad de förlorade på. Ja, en teknisk blev det ju, men alltså, kan du beskriva den här situationen som uppstod på slutet?
Nej, men alltså, man måste ju ge Jokic att han är rutinerad, men alltså de går lite armkrok och Scottie Barnes får en av de mer...
Det är helt lika, det är jämnt i matchen.
Alltså Toronto har ju lätt hela tiden och leder med 6-7 poäng när det bara är 2 minuter kvar.
Mot Denver.
Och så får Denver, först så får man ett par straffkast som är väl tveksamma. Sen så får man den här faulen på Scottie Barnes. Och så får Scottie Barnes en teknisk för att han slår ut med armarna. Han säger, vad man ser på tv-bilderna så säger han faktiskt inte ett ord. Han slår ut med armarna, får en teknisk, det är hans andra teknisk, han blir ejektad. Och det blir en massa straffkast och skit och Denver håller undan och vinner och alla i...
Helt välförtjänt.
Inte riktigt, men ja, det var ju spännande morgon. Ja, det var ju mycket bra matcher i natt, måste man säga.
Ja, det var det. Det har varit mycket bra matcher de senaste dagarna. Vi kan gärna prata även om som sagt, Denver är fortfarande nummer 1 i hela NBA nu faktiskt. I det lag som har bäst record just nu av alla. Det kanske man inte trodde i början av säsongen någonstans.
Fast det har de väl inte?
Jo, jag tror det.
Nej, jag tror att det finns ett lag som heter Milwaukee Bucks.
Men de förlorade ju!
Milwaukee är väl 46-18 och Denver 46-19.
Ja, det stämmer.
Ja, okej då. De har lika många segrar i alla fall.
Ja, de har lika många segrar. Och det är jämnt däremellan.
Det är väldigt jämnt. Men Milwaukee som sagt förlorade sin match. Väldigt spännande match var det ju dessutom. Den matchen också häromkvällen.
Och för alla er som inte tyckte att James Harden skulle vara All-Star och sånt där. Så,
Fantastisk insats. Och någonstans, jag blir hela tiden påmind. För jag kan tappa det ibland att liksom så här, men han är slut. Och han har aldrig varit bra. Men någonstans när man ser honom då och då inser man hur otroligt bra han är. Och vad viktig han är för Sixers nu. Och att han verkar trivas och spela för coach Doc Rivers och allting. Liksom. Det här verkar bra. Vad tror vi? Kan Sixers verkligen, kan de ta sig hela vägen till final? Kibba, vad tror du? Jag vet att du hejar på Milwaukee.
Som jag ser det 4 lag. Och sen har ju faktiskt Knicks helt plötsligt gått bra här. Vunnit 9 de sista 10 och 9 raka. Men egentligen är det 4 lag. Milwaukee, Boston, Philadelphia och Cleveland som jag ser bra i östra. Philadelphia kan, ska vi se, de har alltså 42. De kommer få svårt att få hemmaplan mot Boston eller Milwaukee. Boston
de kommer att få hemmaplan mot Boston, det tror jag.
Tror du det? Jag tror de kommer fortsätta att tappa Boston. De är 5 sista 10, torska 3 raka nu. Ja, jag vet inte. Jag tycker Boston är bättre än Philadelphia. Men, men visst har de en chans. Det är öppet. Det är de 4 lagen där plus Knicks liksom, som kan vinna på östra. Varför jag säger Cleveland?
Ja, varför säger du Cleveland?
Därför att Cleveland har slagit Boston 3 gånger av 4.
Ja, jag tycker Philadelphia är ett helt annat lag än Cleveland. Jag vill bara gå tillbaka till Harden. Kan vi inte bara ge dem lite kärlek?
Jag ger Harden gärna kärlek.
Ja. Nej, men det är en spelare som nästan aldrig, de senaste åren har fått höra massa andra saker om sig själv och sitt spel. Vad hade han? Hade en 20 assist här om natten.
I natt,
liksom,
nu i natt.
Ja.
Jag har inte hört så mycket om spel. Det är väl mer att han hoppar från klubb till klubb.
Ja, men nu gör han ju inte det. Jag tror att han vill vara kvar här. Det här är nog det bästa som har hänt honom.
Nu ska du inte vara naiv här inte.
nu pratas det väldigt hårt om att komma hem till Houston.
Jaha.
Hem till Houston, stackare.
Ja, jag vet att du vill det. Men,
nej,
okay.
Jag vet inte om jag vill det faktiskt.
Nej, men James Harden är definitivt, till skillnad från många andra de här celebriteterna som har hållit på och dividerat fram och tillbaka, tycker jag att han är på en otroligt hög nivå. Inte bara poängmässigt, utan liksom han är en lagspelare som är en underskattad lagspelare, skulle jag säga. Fantastisk. All heder, jag lägger mig platt. James Harden, du är jädrigt bra. På tal om sådana här spelare som de andra spelarna, det var ju 2 av dem där som möttes ju. Kyrie Irving och Kevin Durant möttes ju också i den väldigt omtalade första matchen. De möts mot varandra. Phoenix Suns då mot Kyrie Irvings Dallas.
Men vadå Kyrie Irvings Dallas?
Ja, men han spelar ju där. Jag ser inte att det är hans.
Så kan du säga att det är hans.
Nej, jag har inte sagt att det är hans.
Det är hans
jag
4 gånger.
Ja, okej. Det är Doncic i Dallas, men det är Kyrie Irving som spelar där. Och säkert, i hans värld är det nog hans Dallas. Det tror jag. Definitivt.
Nej, det tror jag inte ens i hans värld faktiskt. Inte ens i den platta tvådimensionella världen så är det hans.
De har spelat 7 matcher nu tillsammans, de här 2. Och vi var ju väldigt skeptiska. Och facit har inte kommit än, men man kan ju konstatera att det har inte börjat bra. De har 2 segrar och 5 förluster när de har spelat ihop. Kommentar, Johan?
Nej, men nu börjar de ju få tillbaka folket igen Dallas, för nu är det upp till bevis. Det var ju en ganska tung förlust där mot Phoenix som vi var inne på, och det var ju lite halvgruff där mellan Booker och Luka när Booker började snacka lite. Men Booker ska väl vara tyst och uppkäkad som han blev i playoff förra året. Men det är kul att se Kevin Durant skjuta i bollar igen. Fantastisk. Men alltså, du nämnde ju ett lag där förut, Viktor och Kribba, som ju faktiskt är betydligt mer intressant i öst än vad Cleveland är. Och det är ju trade deadlines absoluta vinnare som fick till sig Josh Hart och hittills inte har förlorat en match med Josh Hart på plan. Det Villanova Connection krossar ju allt just nu i New York.
Men inte kan det väl hålla hela vägen?
Nej, men de kan kanske... Alltså, Conference Semifinals mot Milwaukee, New York, den kan jag nog se i en andra runda. Liksom.
Men det är också ett lag som absolut ingen trodde på riktigt.
Nej, verkligen
inte. De är så luttrade. New York-borna är ju luttrade. De har ju liksom inte upplevt någonting liknande på länge.
Ola Brandell går ju på vatten.
Coach Ola Brandell, ja, precis. En av våra vänner, bekanta. Det finns ju några andra som gillar Knicks, men inte så många kanske. De flesta har gett upp genom åren. Men vad är hemligheten? Är det så enkelt att du hittade en pusselbit som fick allting att stämma? Eller? Josh Hart?
Nej, men alla har ju spelat fantastiskt bra de här sista matcherna. Och Brunson är ju faktiskt... Alltså han var bra i Dallas och han är ju de facto bättre än Kyrie Irving. Så att... Alltså... Ja, sen Julius Randle har ju börjat skjuta i bollen igen. Och Maggie Quigley... Ja, med uttalet är naturligtvis sådär. Men Quigley har ju varit fantastisk de sista matcherna. Och ja, men Arje Barrett träffar havet från båten. Och det börjar ju i alla fall se ut som ett vinnarlag. Alltså, men det finns något där. Inte något mästerskapslag, men ja.
Men det är ändå häftigt.
Kan nog slå ut Cleveland i första rundan, tror jag.
Men är det inte häftigt ändå? Någonstans. Jag tycker alltid det är så otroligt att man gör massa trades och tänker man, men det där var ju inte så smart. Hur tänkte de nu? Till exempel att Clippers släpper Michael Bridges till Brooklyn, tänker man, men det där, hur tänkte de? Liksom
Clippers?
Nej, förlåt. Phoenix, förlåt. Jag menar Phoenix. Det där var ju, snacka om jackpot för Phoenix. Liksom så här. Men Bridges har ju varit fantastisk i Brooklyn. Vad har han haft? 4 stycken 40-poängsmatcher på de senaste 7. Eller
vet du vad han skjuter från 3-poängslinjen sen han kom till Brooklyn?
Nej, säg.
50%.
Det är helt otroligt.
Och alltså, han har gått från att ha haft, vad var det, 17% i usage i Phoenix till liksom 29% i usage i Brooklyn. Och alltså, han kan ju inte fortsätta skjuta som han gör. Han skjuter ju i allt. Det är ju helt absurt.
Men vad är förklaringen? Vad är förklaringen till att är det för att han får en självförtroende? Kribba, vad är din teori? Låt Kribba få berätta.
Johan kan få fortsätta där. Jag skulle bara säga större roll, då växer man.
Så det är det inte alla gör, tycker inte jag. Men alltså, han har ju fått som coachen säger, du ska ha bollen. Det är inte Chris Paul som står och dribblar 27 gånger på stället utan att det händer något. Så det... Nej, fast det...
men han och Spencer Dinwiddie får göra vad de vill egentligen. Det ska de ju få göra i det här laget.
Alltså, jag gillar ju de lirar. Sen har de inte varit superframgångsrika än så länge. Men alltså, det finns ju hopp för framtiden i Brooklyn.
De gjorde rätt helt enkelt, och som hivade alla de här stjärnorna.
Nej, det hade de nog. De hade ju inte hivat om inte Kyrie hade frågat om en trade. Då hade de naturligtvis haft dem kvar. Och jag säger inte att på kort sikt den här säsongen så tror jag att det hade varit ett bättre val. Men om vi ser det 2-3 år framåt, nu har man ju ett kapital för att liksom kunna bygga någonting. Men å andra sidan, tålamodet i Brooklyn-marknaden är väl kanske inte superstort. Så vi får väl se. Liksom. Det är ju liksom, som Kribba brukar vara inne på, det här med att bara börja om hela tiden är ju... Ja, nu har man ju börjat om. Så får vi se hur snabbt eller långsamt det här går.
Det är plågsamt att vara supporter ibland, tror jag, för ett lag.
Ja. Alltså, jag måste fråga er grabbar, så här, vem har bästa offense i NBA?
Vad är din definition på bästa offense, menar du?
Ja, det finns väl bara en definition.
Hur många poäng man gör framåt eller vad?
Nej, points per possession är väl det enda som är intressant.
Ja, du brukar säga det.
Ja, men jag vet att Denver är 2 på den där listan. Men de är inte 1. Jag vet inte. Borde jag veta det?
Nej, det borde inte. Men det är inte ett lag som... Man hade kunnat sagt innan säsongen att de kommer att ha ett bra offense. Men hade inte sett att de skulle ha det bästa offenset. Kribba får en gissning också.
Ja, jag gissade inte. Jag visste ju att det inte var det.
Ja, ni får en gissning var då.
Offense.
Utah?
Ja. Över hela säsongen, menar du? Eller?
Ja, de här 55 matcherna eller vad det nu är man har spelat.
Ja, då kan jag inte säga Dallas alltså. Jag vet inte. Jag säger Boston.
Det är en ganska bra gissning. Ja, fast det är inte rätt.
Okej. Ja, jag vet inte. Jag sa Utah.
Sacramento Kings.
Såklart. Ja.
Såklart.
Ja, men otroligt. Vilken säsong de har gjort. Fantastiskt. På tal om trades och Sabonis och allting. Liksom så. Hur en liten trade kan göra så stor skillnad.
Inte så liten, men okej. Ja.
Ja, vad säger vi om Sacramento? Vad säger du, Johan, eftersom du har tänkt på det här?
Ja, men... ja, jag tycker att de har varit fantastiska framåt. Inte lika fantastiska bakåt. Och har väl inte ett lag som ska utmana, och det är väl drömmen för alla Dallas-fans att få en 3-6 Sacramento Dallas för att kunna gå till andra rundan. Men jag tycker de spelar fantastiskt roligt. Alltså de spelar en av de absolut roligaste basket man har sett i år. Ja, man har en spännande rookie, Keegan Murray, som är bra. Man har Buddy Hield som skjuter i bollen anafirid. Darren Fox är helt fantastisk.
Nej, du sa det fel. Buddy Hield var lämnat.
Alltså, inte Buddy Hield. Vad heter han som skjuter? Hurter. Kevin Hurter. Och sen vad heter han som jag tänker? Barnes. Harrison Barnes som spelar 4 och gör ett low-key bra jobb. Och Sabonis har ju faktiskt varit fantastisk. Det är liksom, folk får säga vad man vill. Ja, han är inte världens bästa försvarsspelare, men han är ju fantastiskt anfallsmässigt. Han är ju Jokic light liksom. Det är ju...
Ja, vi hade ju för någon vecka sedan då pratade vi om liksom spelare som jobbar i det tysta, som kanske förtjänar lite mer uppmärksamhet, men som kan aldrig kommer vara stjärnor. Och en av dem är ju faktiskt Harrison Barnes. Alltså det han har gjort under sina, vad det nu är, 13-14 säsonger vad han har spelat nu. Han är ju en veteran nu, men fortfarande håller en väldigt hög nivå. Jag förstår fortfarande inte varför Golden State tradade honom efter första guldet, eller första mästerskapet. Den har jag fortfarande inte riktigt fattat. De skickade honom till Dallas då. Och sen hamnade han i Sacramento till slut. Och där har han ju varit rätt länge nu. Men han har ju år efter år har han samma spelstil, han levererar, han är en stabil kille. Vad säger du, Kiva?
Alltså problemet är, jag har Sportkanalen, då visar de en match per dag. Men jag tror jag har sett Sacramento en gång max spela säsong.
På 14 år.
Ja, men alltså, jag gillar ju Harrison Barnes, ja. Men jag har sett Sacramento alldeles för lite för att kunna... Men alltså, Mike Brown är ju helt allvarligt en av starkaste kandidaterna till årets coach med det han har gjort med den där gruppen. Och får dem liksom att prestera på en helt annan nivå än man har gjort sedan Luther dog.
Vem trodde det?
Försvarscoachen Mike Brown, vars lag nu är 25 i defense och 1 i offense.
Så det kan gå. Jaha, vi ska prata mer NBA faktiskt alldeles strax. Då vi har en gäst. Det är inte så ofta vi har det, men idag har vi faktiskt, den här gången har vi gäst. En gäst som i allra högsta grad vet det mesta om NBA och amerikansk collegebasket och så vidare. Så alldeles strax är det dags. Men innan vi gör det då, bara kort några andra reflektioner från basketvärlden. Vi pratat Euroleague damer. Johan, närmar sig slutspelet. Vad kan du säga om där? Vi har ju svensk intressen i allra högsta grad.
Ja, det är grundserien är färdigspelad nu för Euroleagues damlag. Och slutspelet kör igång på, vad blir det nu? Den 14 där, va? Slutspelet kör igång. Så att och det är ju då med lite blandade framgångar. Skio då, Amanda Sauis lag ska möta Valencia i den ena kvartsfinalen som börjar på tisdag nästa vecka. Och de andra kvartsfinalerna så är det ju Prag mot Avenida. Det är Mersin mot Bourges och Fenerbahce mot Sopron. Och nu så, ja, alla ni som vill ha med sponsornamnen, de är inte med. Men
det skiter vi.
Ja, det skiter jag i också. För det är det här de har hetat historiskt sett. Sen att de byter massa sponsorsnamn, det får vi leva med.
Vad är Amandas chans då att passera Valencia?
Ja, men det är ganska bra. De har hemmaplansfördel där. De kom 2 i sin grupp efter Mersin då, och i grupp B som det då heter. Och i samma grupp då som Reagan McGarretys basketlandes kom näst sist i den gruppen och åkte då ut. Så att, men Ja, det är spännande, och vi pratar om det här med tv-avtal och grejer. Här kan man ju alltså möjlighet att se alla matcherna gratis på YouTube. Och så det är ju bara liksom att ratta in för alla som vill titta på fantastiskt bra dambasket. Så finns alla matcherna, och titta nu, senaste omgången så var det ju, eller den sista matchen var ju en avgörande match mellan Avenida och Spar Girona om vem som skulle gå vidare. Kan jag också rekommendera för er att titta på.
Ratta in tror jag är fel uttryck rent generellt om man kollar på nätet. Men okej, jag köper det.
Ja, okej då. Du ska knappa in.
Ja, exakt. Klicka kanske. Okej, killar. Vi ska byta språk här nu. För nu är det nämligen strax dags för våran gäst. Så håll i hatten nu, för nu blir det åka av. Det är nämligen dags för en 305-gäst här i podden. Jajamensan, för vi har en väldigt, väldigt trevlig gäst med oss i 305 den här gången. Nämligen en coach som, och jag säger det här på svenska, I say this in English later on so you hear me. Director of Player Development med LA Clippers. Han har tidigare också varit med i Chicago Bulls utvecklingsstab. Han har haft huvuduppdrag och ansvarig för bland annat då spelarutveckling för Nike. Han har jobbat med massa college-spelare. Han har varit involverad i All American Camp, All Asia Camp, Jordan Flight School, Nike Skills Academies. Han har dessutom varit assisterande coach under Jerry Tarkanian i Fresno State och mycket, mycket, mycket mer. It's a pure pleasure to have you with us, Dave Severns, to 305-podden, the 305, or I don't know, how would you say it in English, Johan?
The 10 feet pod.
The 10 feet pod, this is it. So welcome to the 10 feet pod, Dave.
Well, thank you, Victor, and thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.
So the first question to you is because there's a reason why you're with us, not only because you have this enormous experience of the best sports in the world, is that you are actually in Norway right now, and we are shaking our heads and wondering, why are you in Norway?
Well, you know, about 7 years ago, a friend of mine from California, who runs a basketball academy in California, got a hold of me and asked me if I would like to come to Norway to teach at a basketball camp in Bergen called the Bergen Elite. And I said, sure. You know, it sounded great. I was scouting at the time for the Clippers, doing pro personnel scouting. So this was in August. So, you know, I'd never been to Scandinavia. So, you know, I took him up on the opportunity, and I've been going out there to Bergen now, I think, for 6 or 7 years. But I think it was the second year I was in Bergen. I met a man whose kids were actually at the camp, and the man's name was Stein Erik Rutegard, who was he's kind of the general manager, assistant coach of the Kongsberg Miners in Kongsberg, Norway. So we developed a relationship, and I guess it was 2 years ago, he got a hold of me and asked me if I would like to come over to Kongsberg during the season, just to kind of consult and be around the team, and you know, maybe help out with the workouts, help out with the coach. So I did. I retired a couple of years ago from the NBA, so I had time on my hands. So this is my second year in Kongsberg, helping out with the miners. Is just kind of a consultant role. I just stay, you know, 2 or 3 weeks before I go home.
Fantastic.
So it's been great. So that's kind of how I ended up in Kongsberg.
And I mean, we in Sweden, we love to point out that we are a little bit better in basketball than Norwegians.
That's what I've heard.
So what's your impression of Norwegian basketball?
Well, you know, it's getting better. I will say, from, you know, the first time I was here, maybe 7 years ago, it's getting better. But in saying that, it has, they could do a much better job, I think. And I think there needs to be, this is just a personal feeling, and I think there needs to be a bigger financial commitment from the government, which I think would help, with facilities, youth programs, things like that. So I think that's the one area in which they could really improve is to put more money into the game. I think there's interest with the young kids, but with so much of the financial resources going to other sports, especially in Norway, the winter sports, the skiing and soccer, basketball kind of gets left behind a little bit. So I think that's one area that they can improve on, putting more money into the game, facilities, and youth programs.
As a California guy, I guess
hope that doesn't get me in trouble with the Norwegians.
No, not at all, not at all.
I'm just calling it like I see it.
As a California guy, I guess the skiing part is not something that you are an expert on.
We're just surfers.
So, Dave, I told before about your CV, your background, coaching. Tell us a little bit more. I mean, how did you hook up in this fantastic sport?
Well, Victor, I tell you, I played throughout, high school and college. I was a very, very average college player in the States. And I really didn't know what I wanted to do after I played. I knew I kind of wanted to be a high school teacher. I really enjoyed that. But I started out as a young coach, as a 22-year-old coach, and was offered a job as the 9th grade boys basketball coach, which is like 13, 14-year-olds. And so, I didn't know if I wanted to coach, but I did it, and I loved it, and I stuck with it, and I just kind of moved my way up the high school ranks in the States. You have freshman basketball, and you have what we call junior varsity, and then you have varsity. And I coached at all three of those levels for about 15 years in California. And then I got an opportunity to go to as an assistant coach to junior college in California. In the States, we have a program called JUCO, it's junior college. It's for freshmen and sophomores in college, would be like 19 and 20-year-olds. And so I coached junior college as an assistant for a couple of years. And then I got a chance to go work at a Division I school, Fresno State University, for 3 years before I was fortunate enough to get into the NBA. But really, I really just wanted to be a high school coach pretty much. I didn't have ambition to go to college or to go to the NBA for sure. But I was just happy being a high school coach. I was a high school teacher for 25 years. I really enjoyed that. But, I took the opportunity to move up a little bit, and that's kind of what I did. I spent 14 years in the NBA before I retired a couple of years ago. So now I have time to just kind of travel around Norway. And a couple of weeks ago, I was in Africa and Zambia. And next week, I'll be in Mexico. I'll come back to Europe in the summer. I'll be in Italy. I'll be in back in Bergen again. I'll be in Greece. So it's a lot of fun traveling around, just trying to teach and share the game.
It's a fantastic, that a sport can bring you all over the world. And
yeah, it's amazing that, the places basketball is being able to take all of us. I'm sure you guys have experienced the same thing.
Not Mexico.
But yeah, that'll be interesting.
Yeah. So Dave, there's so many questions, and we will all of us will ask you loads of questions. But first of all, European basketball is developing. Obviously, you've had. The last MVPs has been a Greek and a Serb, and obviously
probably going to win it again this year.
Probably, yeah. So there's the world is closing in on the sport that was created in the North American area. How do you experiencing this with your travels?
You're right on the money with your comments. Let me put it this way: there's been talk about making the All-Star game more competitive, the NBA All-Star game, by having the U.S. players play against the world players. And trust me, the U.S. players don't want that because they'd probably get beat. So European basketball especially has really, really, in the last 20, 25 years is just grown tremendously. And I study it. I study their players. But the thing I like best is to study their coaches. There's some terrific coaches in European basketball, especially when you're looking at the EuroLeague coaches. Those are some of the best tactical coaches in the world. They stack up against NBA coaches any day. The difference is NBA coaches have to deal more with the players, managing egos, managing playing time, dealing with agents, and there's a lot more games. But tactically, the European coaches are every bit as good, if not better, than what I see in the NBA. And that's not a knock against NBA coaches. Their skill set has to be more, managing the game, managing the players, managing a roster. But European basketball is terrific. I love to watch it. I love to study it. It's just grown, exponentially the last 20, 25 years.
We're that old, all four of us.
All of us are about the same age. I'm probably older than all you guys.
Maybe we don't talk about age that much, but but there's obviously a time when we remember when there were not too many Europeans or other nationalities in NBA, and there were talks about that they will never keep up with the pace of the American basketball and things like that. What did happen? What because you've been there? What was the biggest explosion? The difference?
I think one of the biggest things, Victor, is the 3-point line is totally changed the game. And a lot of the European kids, they come from a different system than the American kids. The European kids come from a club system, and the emphasis from an early age is on developing the whole player. It doesn't matter if you're big or small. You're going to learn how to shoot, pass, dribble, play more as a team. In the States, a lot of it's more individualized. And if they have a big kid at a young age, they put him in the post, and sometimes that can inhibit their development with perimeter skills. So that's one of the things that I think is the 3-point line has really changed our game. And the club system in Europe, I think, is advantageous towards that with those kids coming up. I remember, you guys may not remember, but I remember when Drazen Petrovic was in the NBA.
We do remember,
Dave. We guys shoot like that.
Yeah.
And there's a Brazilian back in the day named Oscar Schmidt, who was an Olympic phenom. Americans hadn't seen guys shoot like that deep. We see it now with Curry and all those guys, but back then, Petrovic and those guys, we'd never seen that really before. We'd never seen a big guy like Arvydas Sabonis be able to pass the ball and shoot outside and play like he did. So that's just my thoughts.
Now it's the time to let the other guys eager to ask questions to you. Johan, start you.
No, but I mean, listening to you, it's fun that there's a lot of the things that we've been talking about here too, and it's like one of the big things I think, except for the 3-point line, which like the talent equalizer, is that when you guys sent the dream team to Europe for the Olympics, it made basketball a much bigger global game for getting kids to start playing and getting
That's a great
kids
point.
in. Yeah. Because you guys started your own, did Europe started to catch up to you guys because it got more popular?
Yeah, that's a great point, Coach. I mean, if you've seen the documentaries on the Dream Team and how popular they were like the Beatles times 10.
Yes.
In Europe and that Barcelona Olympics. And yeah, you can just see how the game just exploded in Europe after that. That's a great point.
And then you said you went to Fresno State, and Victor told that you were assistant under Coach Tarkanian.
Yeah, I worked with Coach Tarkanian. I was actually the video coordinator when that was first beginning as a position, and spent 3 years with Coach. And he was one of the greatest coaches, in our college game in the States. a lot of controversy always surrounded him, but there's no denying he was a great coach. And I learned so much from him, and not just from those 3 years, but I was always a fan of his UNLV teams growing up as a young coach. And
yes, me too.
You lived in California and Nevada. You love those Rebels teams. And so I was very fortunate enough to work for him for 3 years and learn so much.
Yeah, because you talked about the tactical stuff, and Jerry gets also, all the bad publicity that comes with what happened for the programs, but tactically and with the zone defense and with the all of those kind of stuff, it's like he was way ahead of his time.
And the thing about him, Coach, is he won big in college playing 3 different ways. I mean, he won big in the late 70s with a full court man-to-man press. All right. He won with a 1-2-2 zone, and he won with the matchup zone, and he won with those late teams at the Rebels, the ones that won the national championship. They were a half court man-to-man team that just didn't let you run anything. Probably the best defensive college team in the history of college basketball.
Yeah, some athletes on that team.
Oh yeah, and you got that too, of course. Yeah.
Just so the young kids that listens, there are some young kids listening to this pod actually.
Good.
Explain to us what kind of profiles were during those 3 years did you coach?
Some of the players. Well, a lot of them you may never heard of. We had a center named Melvin Ely. We had a kid named Courtney Alexander that went on to play in the NBA. He had a kid named Chris Herron, Ray for Alston. He always had really good players. Those are probably his most famous players. That was just from the Fresno State days. And obviously the UNLV teams had great, Larry Johnson and all those, Stacey Augman, Greg Anthony. So
the younger kids should probably know about Raphael Alston though, because he was the one that started all the hype with the N1 stuff.
Yeah, the N1 mixtape guy. Yeah.
All of that stuff. So yeah.
Isn't it pretty good?
Skip to my Lou.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty good ESPN story about Chris Herron. Sad start and pretty happy ending in the beginning. Great.
Yeah, that was a great documentary, Coach. And he had a lot of demons. And he straightened his life out now, and he's actually a motivational speaker who goes around to speak to schools and groups and things like that, and talks about his hardships. And he's really turned it around. And he's turned into just a terrific guy, and we wish him the best.
That's a great documentary to see if you have the time.
Yes, it's excellent.
I mean, obviously, we have another story which is discussed right now. Now we leave you for a couple of seconds and talking about Ja Morant and the issue that happened now. I mean, working with individuals, what are your thoughts about what happened and what happens to Ja Morant right now?
Well, it's first of all, it's a sad story, and we wish him the best. And from what I understand, he's checked himself into rehab. But this is a kid that, we've all known and followed him since he was in high school as NBA people. He came from a 2-parent, middle class, very good upbringing, went to a private school. So, this behavior that we see him now, it's not him. It's not the way he was raised. And his dad's his biggest supporter, and his dad, I'm sure, is very, very disappointed at all the things that have happened. And, a lot of money at a young age can be a problem.
Yep.
A lot of fame.
It seems to have been a problem with him, with the alcohol and the drugs, and I don't know about the drugs, but the guns and all that. And this isn't the first incident. Nope. This is about the 4th incident in the last couple of years involving this kid. So we wish him the best. He's a super talented kid, as we all know. But sometimes, having that much money and that much fame at a young age, and you can surround yourself with some wrong people. Let's just say that.
Let's hope. Absolutely a fantastic player and a great talent in many ways. We are asking ourselves, what will this mean for Memphis Grizzlies that is having this best season
it really
ever?
Hurts them. Yeah. I mean, it really hurts them, and not just him being out, but, their backup center just tore his Achilles. Brandon Clark, he's the terrific player off the bench. Dylan Brooks, got suspended because he got too many technical fouls. So he missed a game the other night against the Clippers. It's going to hurt their team. Let's be honest.
It's going to depend a lot on how long this suspension is going to be, because this indefinitely thing by Taylor Jenkins is it's an interesting press conference, but I mean, if you look back at what happened to Gilbert Arenas, I mean, it's going to be a long suspension.
Coach, I kind of agree with you. When you start talking about guns in places they're not supposed to be, according to the CBA, that's a problem, and it could be a big suspension. He could miss the rest of the season.
Yeah, because you said a big thing here, and this is where his friend's going to cover him, I think, because you said the CBA, and the guns can't be in like workplaces and like locker rooms and stuff like that. Yeah. This was a strip club.
Yeah.
So the thing is, how did the gun get to Denver?
Right.
And some of his friends probably going to cover him for that. But like the Gilbert Arenas with the gun on the plane for a 1-year suspension.
Yeah. So and I'll tell you, the NBA does a great job with their investigators. Like, they got real people on this. It's not Inspector Clouseau checking this thing out.
Rumors about connections with FBI and looking into everything. It's also interesting with the Brandon Miller situation about him bringing a gun to a homicide and not anything happening there in Alabama, suspension wise or accountability wise and things like that.
Yeah, that's
a different country, huh?
Yeah, but Brandon Miller stuff. Yeah, I don't know if he's gonna be in some of the lawsuits, but I don't know how it's gonna end up with that one, because I don't think everything is dropped, Kriba. I don't know if it's
it's still pending, and I'm no lawyer, so I don't know. I don't know legally, what kind of charge could be brought against him. I thought he showed very poor judgment with the player introduction thing.
Yeah.
Him and the walk on with that whole thing with the gun. Me personally, as a coach, I'd have suspended him for a game at least. But he's their best player. They're trying to get a top seed in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah. But I would like to get back to something you said before about the coaches in the EuroLeague, because I totally agree with you. But it also, like, the players from the EuroLeague are now like the MVPs of the NBA. But
they're
coaches,
real players.
Yeah, but the coaches have a tough time making it work. I mean, you see like a David Blatt or like a Kokoshkov or those guys. Yeah, Torre Messina and those guys. The coaches never really break through the wall, so to speak, like the players have done.
Yeah. I have some philosophy on that. In EuroLeague, and they have a lot of time to practice.
Yeah.
So they can practice 3 or 4 days a week. In the NBA, you never practice. And I think that's a hard adjustment, because they want to practice more than really they're able to because of the 82 games. So I think that's one thing that frustrates those coaches. And if they would kind of adjust a little bit to that, they could maybe be a little more successful. And in the NBA, it's the players got all the power.
Yeah. But it also, like you said, 'cause since they never practice, the regular season is more about you don't scout for the next opponent the same way you do in the EuroLeague when you know all the plays. Yeah, that's when the 16-game season starts in the playoff in the NBA. Then you do that stuff. But during the season, it's not the same way as in EuroLeague, where you scout everything for every game.
Yeah. They try in the NBA, because NBA coaching staffs are so big. There's so many coaches that they try to divide up the scouting reports, but the games come so fast that it's like you can't spend 2 or 3 days scouting for the next game like you can in the playoffs. It's done like rapid fire. It's done like, in a walkthrough, or in a quick film session, the day before a game to prepare. So it's so much different than the EuroLeague. Yeah, You're right.
So how and where do you fit in your favorite area, player development, into an NBA team? I mean, individual development, that aspect.
To me, that's a really important part of the NBA because two reasons. You make your players better, you're going to make your team better. And they look at it selfishly because if you can help them get better, they're going to make more money. So, a lot of people ask me, well, how are NBA guys to deal with? I said, they're great. I call it the 95% rule. 95% of almost everybody's going to be great. You're always going to have that 5% that don't buy in or whatever. But if you can help them get better at something that's going to help their career and help them financially, they're in. They're all in. Now, does every NBA guy work hard? No. But 95% of them do. And it's, there's really like, you have to get them to trust you. That's the number one thing. They got to know that they can trust you, and that can take some time. Because if they see that you're in it just to try to move up or not really help them, they're not going to buy in. So if you can get them to trust you, and then they'll pretty much do anything for you, really, be honest with you. And the second thing is you got to be there for them, what we call 24/7. If you're a player development coach, you got to be available almost all hours for these guys. Summertime, late at night, if they want to do something, get shots up or whatever, you got to be available. So it's different than being an assistant coach, because if you're in the player development side, you're really not involved in X's and O's and making personnel decisions on rotations or substitutions and all that. Your job is to get those guys better. So,
so if you want to make the players better, so how do you work? Do you work kind of in an overall big picture, or do you kind of adapt their skill development to what the team needs?
There's both, Coach. The first thing is you got to go to the head coach and say, okay, what's this guy's role? How do you see him fitting into the team? And where do you see him needing to improve? And then you take it from there. Some head coaches will be really involved with player development. Some will just say, you got it. I trust you. Just go ahead, get them better. So it's kind of a combination of things. And so much of player development in the NBA is having to improve player shooting.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably 70 to 80% of the work is getting guys to be better shooters, better free throw shooters, whatever it is, off the dribble, off the catch, off the move. Because so much of the game now is 3-point shooting, as you guys know, that player development is a lot about shooting.
Was there a difference in how the player developmental area worked in Chicago and in the Clippers?
Well, not really, because the years I was with the Bulls and I first went to the Clippers, it was the same head coach.
Okay.
So that program kind of stayed the same. And then when Doc came in and I worked for Doc for 3 years, it changed a little bit more. We started adding more coaches. When I first started, it was just me, and then 6 or 7 years later, it had expanded. Now the player development coaches were like 6 of them, 5 or 6. So you had more coaches. You were able to do more things with the players. That's the biggest change.
Is it easier to be one coach? I mean, in terms of having looking at the whole picture, rather than having 6 or 7 development coaches?
Well, I look at it this way: more people, more problems. I mean, there's advantages because now you can split up the workload, and you're not chasing balls all the time by yourself. But you also got more people out there. You got more personalities. You got more egos. You got more, more people, more problems. So everybody's got to be on the same page.
Absolutely. You've been in that process where, NBA has changed, and not only in terms of players from other countries, but also in terms of preparations. There's a lot of talk about load management and things like that. The old school guys said we never had load management, Charles Barkley and those guys.
Yeah.
What is your take on those kind of issues?
I kind of agree with Charles.
Good.
I kind of agree. I really do. If a guy's injured, that's something different. But if we're managing his minutes and he's not injured, just to kind of save him for the playoffs, I got a problem with that from a fan's point of view, especially when the team goes on the road and they have one chance to see a superstar play. And they spend a lot of money to go to the arena, and then that guy doesn't play because of load management. He's not hurt, but the science and the analytics say he shouldn't probably play this game. Well, tell me the game that he's going to get hurt, and I won't play him. Okay,
Yeah.
That's kind of the way I look at it. But it's a real problem for the league, and they have a new collective bargaining agreement coming up. They're in negotiations now. And that's a real concern for the owners, is how are we going to deal with this load management problem?
What have you heard there, suggestion-wise? What do you think is going to end up?
I haven't heard anything, Coach, to be honest with you. I think, here's just a crazy idea that I think about it. I think the fans should be able to buy insurance on their ticket. Okay, so I pay a little more money, and if the superstars don't play, I've got
It's
insurance on that
refundable.
ticket.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds crazy, but I don't
That's
know. Maybe that's something they could do. But see, the thing is, you can't force a guy to play. You can fine him, for being late or breaking team rules and all that stuff. But loads management, you can't fine a guy.
But at the same time, I totally agree with everything you said so far. But is it the players or the coaches who sit them?
It's rarely the coaches, because they want to win every game.
Yeah. But it's like the management. It's not the players coming saying they don't want.
It is, Coach? Medical staff.
Yeah.
It's medical. And the medical staffs are so big. They have so many people that are experts at all this stuff. And a lot of times it's them making the decision. And a lot of the time it's the player making the decision. It's rarely the coaches. Coaches want guys to hoop.
No. Coaches want to win. So, yeah. So. And it's the same with the tanking problem.
And getting back to what the league could do, cut out the back-to-backs.
Yeah.
But make it a little longer and don't play back-to-backs.
Or just cut the season shorter with 10 games. But that's
never going to happen.
No.
You know why?
Yeah.
I suggested starting earlier, like 14 days earlier, so you don't get any.
And Coach, I think that's probably the most logical solution, is maybe start a couple weeks earlier and try to cut out as many back-to-backs, if not all of them.
Exactly.
But cutting the season down to like 70 games, the owners ain't going for that, because that's money out of their pockets. TV revenue.
Yeah. You've been around for so long and see so many trends come and go in the NBA.
Right.
Right now it's been a lot of like Pistol 5 for like the last couple of years and stuff like that. But what do you see changing now? Is it like the defense pushing back with the rule change coming, that like, cause like the 174 games is like crazy. Yeah, maybe not that fun.
Well, the offense has such an advantage nowadays, and kids are coming in with the ability to shoot with such deeper range than we saw. And so with the rule changes, the ability of these kids to shoot so deep and handle the ball so well, the defense has been an advantage, a disadvantage. I kind of think the league likes it. They like offense. They like scoring. Fans like it.
They like breaking records.
Yeah, but I mean that Clipper game a couple weeks ago was 176 to 175. No, it was overtime and all that, but still the scoring's it's up. I don't know if they'll ever try to balance it out and make the rules advantageous for the defense. I don't know if that's going to happen. So we'll see. It's hard to guard these guys, man. They're so good.
Yeah, but still, as a skills coach, it's changed so much because back in the days when you could hand check and yes. I mean, the things like you had to be so much stronger than today. Because I mean, like a kid like Trae Young should have a tough time playing in the 90s because he wouldn't get by.
He'd drive in there and they'd knock him on his ass 3 or 4 times, and there wouldn't be a foul call.
No,
it's. The rules have changed, everything. Like you mentioned, the hand check. Can't do that anymore.
Kriba, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I was just wondering from your perspective if you can really tell European people how much of a business the NBA is, because I think most people think it's like really serious competition, and of course it is, but it is foremost a business, isn't it?
Coach, it's a business, and it's the entertainment business. Okay, we're in the entertainment business. Okay, so you got $100 in your pocket. You got to decide: do I want to go to an NBA game? Do I want to go to the movie? Do I want to go to a concert? Do I want to go watch a play? Or go out to a nice dinner? It's an entertainment business, and so much of that business is tied to TV contracts. The new TV deal is going to come up for renewal here pretty soon, and there's going to be players trying to get into it. Apple TV, Amazon Prime. Those guys are all going to try to get into the market because it's big business and it's entertainment, and it's very popular still. Even with all the negative publicity and stuff that happens with the league, it's still a very popular product.
What is the future? I mean, in terms of NBA, what?
The future, I think, Coach, is Africa. As far as players, I think we're seeing more and more African players. The BAL, the Basketball African League, is becoming better and better, and I think we'll see more and more players from Africa. I don't know what's going to happen with China, with all the politics and the U.S. and the China thing. That's not going real well right now. I mean, the NBA is still huge in China, but I don't know what's going to happen there. But it's big business in China too. So those are the two markets. Will it ever expand to Europe? Doubtful, in my opinion, because logistically the travel is just probably too hard. Could it expand to Mexico City? Possibly. Could it expand to Las Vegas and Seattle? Almost assuredly.
Yeah.
Some of us are rooting for Seattle very much. So.
Oh, no doubt. Great NBA city. They should have a team.
Yeah.
Yes. In terms of explain to us, I mean, obviously every player has his own skills development task. How do you work with the individual part of it? I mean, if it's a player that you work with.
Well, it's like most things. The first thing you got to explain is why. Okay, you explain the why, because it's not like 30 years ago because I told you so. It ain't like, okay, this is why we got to work on this. Blah, 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 and then you tell them the why. And then you tell them the how. This is how we're going to do it. And this is what we're going to do. Okay, so if you can look at it through that lens, the why, the how, the what, then players are pretty good about buying in if they trust you. Got to have trust. Okay, and you explain to them, hey, look, we really need to work on this skill or this skill. The analytics say this, you can't shoot off the dribble or whatever it is. You can't go to your left and finish. Whatever the skill that needs improving. If you can tell them why we need to work on this and show them how you're going to do it and what we're going to do, now you've got a plan.
Which player or players are you most satisfied with the development?
Well, everybody asked me this. I was fortunate enough. My favorite player to work with, because he just worked so hard and he would do whatever you asked him to, was Joakim Noah with the Bulls.
Half Swede.
Half Swede. We're so proud. He's half Swede.
Oh yeah, his mom is great. You Miss Sweden. Yeah. Yeah. He was great, because he cared so much about winning. That's all, he just wanted to win, and whatever it took, to work on to win would be, we had when I was with the Clippers in my first year, we had a young player who was the number one pick in the draft. His name was Blake Griffin. And, we had Blake as a young player, and he really struggled shooting the ball coming out of college. And so we hired a shooting coach for him, and Blake's development as a shooter was just tremendous in the 5 or 6 years we were together. It wasn't because of anything we did. It was because of him. He really, really worked at it, and to where he became a pretty good shooter and a free throw shooter. There's guys that you've never heard of, like random NBA guys that were just great. They were like bench players or role players. And those are some of the best guys to work, because see, if you can take, say, the 12th man on the team and develop him to where he becomes the 8th man and he's a rotation player. See, that's really worth your weight in gold. The top players are going to be pretty much good no matter what. All right. But if you can get those guys at the bottom of the roster a little bit better and make them rotation players, that's when you've done a great job, in my opinion.
Yeah, and like you say about Blake, he went from like a guy who couldn't shoot free throws to now being a pick and pop guy that
he's a pop
only shoots threes. Like, so.
Yeah,
but they sapped his knee out. But
yeah. I mean, and I lived through it. I saw it, and the knee injuries. He had Hall of Fame talent for sure. Yeah. With the knee injuries, just really, really curtailed his career. And he was a fun guy to be around. Blake was. Yeah, he was good.
Now, I was just thinking about your situation right now. Are you still affiliated with any NBA club, or you just happily retired?
No, retired. No. I'll still go to some Clipper games. I'm fortunate enough they let me come to the home games. And so I'll still watch a few NBA. I watch a lot of NBA on TV and on film. But I'll go to some live games, maybe 10 times a year to watch the Clippers play and root them on.
You got some clinics for sailors, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I do a lot of coaches clinics. That's what I'll be doing in Mexico next week. And when I was in Zambia about a month ago, we did some coaches clinics down there. So
you should come to Sweden.
Well, all you got to do is invite me, Coach, and I'll come.
Yeah,
we hear you.
Yeah, we hear you, definitely.
And for me, it's more like I learn more from you guys. Like I like to learn from. For example, I was in Italy last summer, way up in a place called Bormio, doing a camp for high school kids, but the Monaco EuroLeague team was there doing training camp, and they had a coach, old school Coach Obradovic, who you've heard of, so. I learned stuff from them, so to me, it's more about trying to learn from wherever I'm at.
Fantastic. So how long are you in Norway now?
Just a couple more days. I got to go back. So I've been here almost 2 weeks. So it's good because, I get to watch I think they call it the BLNO league. Is that the name of their pro league?
Yeah.
Get to watch, some of their teams, and it's fun. The people here are great.
Fantastic.
And the coach from Sweden's been very accommodating. He just kind of lets me do what I want to do, and he's been great.
Yeah, Åke's a great guy.
Okay, yeah.
He's a great guy. I was mentioned it. Yes. Oh, you follow the NBA a lot. So what what trends do you see, like playing wise now in the NBA?
Yeah, positionless basketball.
Yep.
5-out offense. And, teams are shooting 40 to 50 3-point shots a game.
Yeah, is that still going to go up, or you
Yes.
think it's going to, yeah?
Well, if you look at the trend in the analytics, it's continuing to go.
Yeah, it's flattening out a little bit, but yeah, it's still high. But the thing is, I like that the trending up is the offensive rebounders are getting back in there. People are crashing the boards again.
Yeah, that's one trend that you're seeing more of. Yeah, and obviously defensively, you're seeing so much switching.
Yeah.
If you can't guard multiple positions, it's hard for you to play nowadays. If you're a perimeter player, you got to be able to guard 1, 2, 3, maybe 4. If you're a big guy, you got to be able to guard a switch.
Yes.
And so those are defensive trends that we see, so much switching.
Yeah, I mean, he's not the most popular guy right now. His star is starting to fall, but Nick Nurse made the junk defense a big thing again.
Yeah, that was a couple of years ago. You're right. He was playing matchup. He was playing box and one. He was playing crazy zones and
like Spoelstra is doing a little bit of that stuff too with the Heat. Yeah.
Yeah, Spoelstra is one of my favorite coaches. I think he's terrific.
Dave, it's been a fantastic pleasure to having you in our podcast.
Thank you.
I know that you have an own podcast. At least you have tried to do the same thing, podcast career. Could you tell us about that podcast?
Oh, well, yeah. Me and a friend of mine named Mike Procopio, he was the player development director for the Dallas Mavericks. And he was Kobe's kind of like game strategy, game coach. So he and I did a series of podcasts on player development. I think we did 18 of them. And every week we would do something different with player development. We'd have guests on, shooting coaches, things like that. So it's called Caught in the Net. And if you're into player development and we just talk about how to work with players and trainers. And that's another big deal in the NBA is guys got their own trainers and stuff and how to navigate that. So, yeah, it's Caught in the Net, but yeah.
Caught in the Net podcast. Check it out, everyone who's listening, to listen to more from Dave. Thank you so much for being with us, and have a safe trip home to a little bit warmer climate than we have here in Scandinavia.
Thank you, Victor. Thank you, coaches. I appreciate it. Hopefully, I'll see you guys someday in Stockholm.
Looking forward.
Thank you.
Ja, det var Dave Severns som sagt. En väldigt intressant, vad sa vi nu? Pistol 5, vad var det för någonting nu då? Vad var det?
Det är väl ett spel där man sätter 5-man som någon form av mid-post-spelare och så spelar man 2-mansspel som kan bli 3-mansspel beroende på vilken sida garden kattar på. Idag, det är väl som allt annat, det är offensivt här i världen från Mike D'Antoni och Phoenix Suns, men idag är det väl Sabonis och Darren Fox som gör det mest av alla i NBA, även om alla NBA-lag har sina varianter av det. Och det har väl varit det shit de sista åren i NBA, men ja. Det är ett ganska enkelt spel som kan utvecklas till väldigt många olika varianter.
Ja, och sen får vi gärna nämna då att när det gäller Dave Severns så har han ju också en hemsida där man kan gå in, kan googla den, där han pratar om skills, alltså utveckling och allt möjligt. Så googla Dave Severns helt enkelt. Det finns mycket att lära av den här mannen. Och andra coacher. Vad tar ni med er av det här samtalet?
Nej, men det är alltid intressant att höra hur man jobbar på den högsta nivån och få reda på folks resa och bakgrund och lite sånt här. Så att det var intressant. NBA är ju som vi brukar tjata om, en business. Och det är kul när folk lyckas och kul att få prata med folk som har varit där.
Det känns ju som mycket av det han sa har vi ju diskuterat här och han bekräftar bara våra teorier när det gäller det mesta. Inklusive All-Star-matchen där med USA mot resten av världen. Vi får se om det blir av. Hörrni, det här var 305 den här gången. Stort tack ni som lyssnade och glöm inte att fortsätta lyssna på 305 framöver. Ha det bra!